My name is Rylan Ventor, and I'm about to tell you how I dismantled my wife's entire existence using nothing more than a calculator, a smartphone, and the kind of patience that comes from 15 years of marriage to a woman who thinks subtlety is a foreign language. I'm 41, work as a data analyst for a mid-sized insurance company in Columbus, Ohio, and until last Tuesday, I thought my biggest problem was explaining to my boss why our quarterly projections looked like a drunk person's attempt at abstract art. Turns out, my wife Dahlia had been busy creating her own masterpiece, a carefully orchestrated betrayal that would have impressed Picasso if he'd been into emotional destruction instead of cubism. "Rylan, I'm going on a wellness retreat," Dahlia announced over her morning latte, the kind that costs more than most people spend on lunch. She was wearing that particular smile she reserves for moments when she thinks she's being clever, the same one she used when she convinced me to buy the house with the mortgage that makes our bank account weep monthly. "A wellness retreat," I repeated, not looking up from my laptop where I was reviewing actuarial tables. Numbers don't lie, unlike certain people who share my bed and my Netflix password. "With Jax from work. You remember Jax?" Oh, I remembered Jax. Joel Saxon, 35. The kind of guy who wears designer gym clothes to buy groceries and thinks a personality is something you can purchase with a premium membership. He'd been to our house exactly 3 times, each visit featuring him flexing while reaching for things on high shelves and making comments about our quaint neighborhood. "The wellness retreat that costs $3,000 and happens to be at the same resort where you've been liking Instagram posts for the past month," I said, still typing. Dahlia's smile flickered. "You've been stalking my social media? I've been married to you for 15 years. I know your patterns better than Amazon's recommendation algorithm." I finally looked up. "Have fun on your retreat. Try not to find too much wellness in Jax's room." She slammed her mug down hard enough to rattle the table. "You know what, Rylan? If you don't like my choices, get a divorce." And there it was. The nuclear option, delivered with the casual cruelty of someone ordering a sandwich. Most husbands might have felt their world collapse at that moment. Me? I felt something else entirely. Relief. Because Dahlia had just given me permission to stop pretending I didn't know exactly what she was doing. "Have a wonderful trip, honey," I said, returning to my laptop. "Don't forget to pack sunscreen." After she left, dragging a suitcase that cost more than my car payment, I sat in our kitchen and listened to the house settle around me. 15 years of marriage, and it had come to this. My wife was running off with her boy toy, and I was sitting here like some pathetic cliché from a daytime television drama. Except I wasn't pathetic. I was methodical. I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it Project Wellness. Then I began documenting everything. The hotel reservation I'd found in her email. The credit card charges at Victoria's Secret, interesting since she'd been buying her underwear at Target for the past 2 years. The text messages she thought she'd hidden, including the one where Jax called me that boring accountant husband, and Dahlia responded with laughing emojis. For the record, I'm not an accountant, I'm a data analyst. There's a difference, though I doubted Jax possessed the intellectual capacity to understand it. My phone buzzed, a text from Dahlia. "At the airport, don't wait up." I responded, "Safe travels, love you too." Then I opened her location-sharing app, the one she'd insisted we both install for safety, and watched the little dot that represented my wife's current position. She wasn't at the airport. She was at Jax's apartment complex. I added this information to my spreadsheet, along with a timestamp and a screenshot. Then I called my friend Drew. "Rylan? What's up, man? You sound weird." Drew Martinez worked in IT for a tech startup and possessed the kind of computer skills that made him invaluable when your wireless router stopped working, and dangerous when your wife thought she was smarter than she actually was. "I need a favor," I said, "the kind that involves your particular expertise and my particular situation." Dahlia finally do something stupid enough to get caught? Define stupid. Scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being forgot to delete browser history, and 10 being accidentally sent affair texts to her mother-in-law. About a 7. She's currently at her lover's apartment while telling me she's at the airport, heading to a wellness retreat that's actually a romantic getaway funded by our joint savings account. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Drew whistled low. That's not stupid. That's advanced stupid. What do you need? Access to her cloud storage, her social media accounts, her email, everything. Rylan, that's illegal, unethical? Probably. But she's been accessing our joint accounts to fund this little adventure, and I'm pretty sure that's theft. I'm also pretty sure she's been planning this for months, which means there's evidence. I just need to find it. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, I'll be over in an hour, and Rylan? I'm sorry, man. This sucks. No, I said, watching Dahlia's location dot finally start moving toward the actual airport. This is just getting interesting. While I waited for Drew, I did what I do best. I analyzed data. Dahlia's spending patterns over the past 6 months told a story that would have made a forensic accountant weep with joy. Mysterious cash withdrawals, charges at expensive restaurants on days when she claimed to be working late. A pattern of behavior that suggested this wasn't a spontaneous decision, but a carefully planned campaign. She thought she was 2 moves ahead. She didn't know I was about to change the game entirely. Drew arrived at my house carrying a laptop bag that looked like it could hack into NASA, which, knowing Drew, it probably could. He's the kind of guy who makes his living solving problems that don't officially exist, and tonight, my wife's infidelity was about to become his latest project. "Show me what you've got so far," he said, settling into my kitchen chair and opening his laptop. I walked him through my spreadsheet, pointing out the patterns, the inconsistencies, the obvious lies. Drew nodded along, occasionally making those little sounds that IT people make when they're mentally cataloging all the ways someone has been technologically stupid. "She's been sloppy," he said finally. "Really sloppy. Look at this. She's been using the same password for everything. Her email, her social media, her banking apps. And it's not even a good password. It's your anniversary date followed by Jax's initials." I stared at the screen. "You're joking." I wish I was. Oh, and she's been backing up all her text messages to the cloud automatically, including the ones with Jax. He clicked through several screens. "Want to read them?" "Give me the highlights." Drew scrolled through the messages, his expression growing more disgusted with each screen. "Okay. So this started about 4 months ago. Initial flirting, complaining about her boring husband who never wants to do anything exciting. Then it escalates to planning secret meetups, and finally," he paused. "Finally to planning this trip and discussing how she's going to take half of everything when she divorces you." "Half of everything." "Yeah, but here's the interesting part. She's been moving money out of your joint accounts into a separate account. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up. She's transferred almost $15,000 over the past 3 months. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something more calculating. "Can you trace where the money went?" "Already did. It's in an account under her name only. But get this. She's also been transferring money to Jax, paying his gym membership, his car payment, even his rent last month. She's been paying his rent. With your money. Technically, it's theft. You could press charges." I considered this. Pressing charges would be satisfying in a conventional way, but conventional wasn't what I had in mind. "What else did you find?" Drew grinned, and I recognized the expression. It was the same look he got when he'd successfully recovered data from a supposedly wiped hard drive. "She's been documenting everything, photos, videos, even a journal app where she writes about her amazing connection with Jax and how she's finally ready to start living her real life. She's been keeping a diary." A digital diary, with pictures, including some from your bedroom talking about how she can't wait to get out of this prison. Now I was angry. Not the hot, explosive kind of anger that makes people do stupid things. The cold, methodical kind that makes people do effective things. I want copies of everything, I said. Already on it. I've downloaded her entire digital life onto this drive. He held up a small USB stick. But Rylan, what are you planning to do with this? I'm going to give my wife exactly what she asked for. The next morning, I began phase 1 of what I'd started thinking of as Operation Wellness. First, I called Dahlia's office and asked to speak with Marlene Thompson, the HR director. Marlene was a woman who'd clawed her way up the corporate ladder using a combination of competence and a complete intolerance for nonsense, and she'd never particularly liked Dahlia. Marlene, this is Rylan Ventor, Dahlia's husband. Oh, hello, Rylan. Is everything all right? I hope so. I'm calling because I've discovered some irregularities in our personal finances that might relate to company resources. Dahlia mentioned she was taking time off for a wellness retreat, but I've found evidence that this trip might be funded through inappropriate means. There was a pause. What kind of irregularities? The kind that might interest your fraud prevention department? I'd rather discuss this in person, if possible. Can you be here this afternoon? I'll be there at 2. My meeting with Marlene went better than I'd hoped. I brought printouts of the financial transfers, the text messages discussing company time being used for personal activities, and the photos Dahlia had taken of company documents, apparently for Jax, who'd been asking about her work projects with suspicious interest. This is very concerning, Marlene said, reviewing the evidence. We'll need to conduct a formal investigation. I understand. I just thought the company should know before this becomes a legal matter. Legal matter? I'm filing for divorce. My attorney advised me to document all potential fraud, including any involving company resources. Marlene's expression hardened. She'd been through her own messy divorce 5 years earlier, and she had very little patience for cheating spouses who dragged their employers into their personal drama. We'll begin the investigation immediately. Dahlia will need to return from her retreat for questioning. Of course. I'll let her know you need to speak with her. But I didn't call Dahlia. Instead, I drove to Jax's gym, a trendy place called Iron Paradise where the membership cost more per month than most people spend on groceries. His BMW was parked in the lot, gleaming under the afternoon sun like a monument to masculine insecurity. I'd brought supplies. 20 minutes later, Jax's car looked the same from the outside, but I'd made some modifications to the interior. Specifically, I'd filled the air conditioning system with a mixture that would release the most concentrated fish smell imaginable when he turned on the AC. I'd also superglued a large, anatomically correct rubber appendage to his hood, the kind sold at bachelor party stores, with a note attached: compensation for what nature forgot. Then I sat in my car and waited. Jax emerged from the gym 45 minutes later, swaggering in that particular way that suggested he'd spent most of his workout admiring himself in the mirrors. He was halfway to his car when he noticed the addition to his hood. The resulting tantrum was everything I'd hoped for and more. He screamed. He pulled at the rubber appendage which I'd secured with industrial adhesive. He looked around wildly as if the culprit might still be lurking nearby. I started recording. Then he got in his car and turned on the air conditioning. The smell hit him like a biological weapon. He stumbled out of the car, gagging, just as several other gym members emerged to see what the commotion was about. Someone else started recording. Within minutes, Jax the gym guy was trending on local social media. I sent the video to Dahlia with a simple message. Looks like Jax is having car trouble. Hope your retreat is going better. Her response came 30 minutes later. What did you do? I replied, nothing illegal, unlike some people I could mention. Then I forwarded the video to everyone in Dahlia's contact list along with a note. Thought you might enjoy this. Jax seems to be having a rough day. Wonder what could have upset him. My phone started ringing immediately, but I didn't answer. I was too busy preparing for phase 2. Dahlia came home 3 days early, her wellness retreat apparently less relaxing than anticipated. I was sitting in our living room, reading a book about data analysis techniques, when she stormed through the front door like a hurricane with a designer handbag. "You son of a—" She stopped herself, probably remembering that losing her temper would put her at a disadvantage. "We need to talk." "About your retreat? How was the wellness?" "Cut the crap, Rylan. I know what you did to Jax's car." "I have no idea what you're talking about. Did something happen to Jax? That's terrible." I turned a page in my book. "Though I did see a funny video online. Small world." She stood there, vibrating with rage, trying to figure out her next move. Dahlia had always been good at manipulation, but she'd never been good at thinking more than one step ahead. She was a tactics person, not a strategy person. "You're being paranoid," she said finally. "It was a work trip, a legitimate business retreat." "With Jax?" "Yes, with Jax. And several other colleagues." "Which colleagues?" She hesitated for just a moment, but it was enough. "I don't have to justify my work activities to you." "You're right, you don't. But HR might be interested in hearing about them." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Marlene Thompson called yesterday. Something about needing to discuss your recent use of company resources. She seemed very concerned about some irregularities that had been brought to her attention." "You called my HR department?" "I called them as a concerned citizen who discovered evidence of potential fraud. It's my civic duty." Dahlia sank into the chair across from me, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she looked genuinely worried. "Rylan, you don't understand. This isn't what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been having an affair with Jax for 4 months, using our joint savings to fund your activities, and lying to both me and your employer about your whereabouts. Did I miss anything?" "How did you—" She stopped herself again. "How did I know?" "Dahlia, I analyze data for a living. Your behavior has been about as subtle as a marching band. The mysterious charges, the secret phone calls, the sudden interest in wellness retreats. Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" She was quiet for a long moment, and I could practically see her brain working, trying to find an angle, a way to turn this around. Finally, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes, the kind of calculated tears she used when she wanted something. "I was going to tell you," she said. "I've been unhappy for so long, and I didn't know how to explain it. Jax makes me feel alive again." "Alive enough to steal $15,000 from our joint accounts?" The tears stopped. "That money is half mine." "Actually, it's not. See, I did some research after I discovered your little financial shell game. Turns out, using joint marital assets to fund an extramarital affair is considered dissipation of marital assets in Ohio. It's grounds for an unequal division of property in divorce proceedings." "You're threatening to divorce me?" "I'm not threatening anything. I'm simply stating facts. Though I should mention, I've already moved my portion of our joint assets into a separate account, for security purposes." She jumped up. "You can't do that." "I can, and I did. I also canceled the credit cards that were in my name, changed the passwords on all our shared accounts, and had a very interesting conversation with our mortgage company about the irregularities in our payment history. This is financial abuse. No, this is financial responsibility. Financial abuse would be if I used our money to fund a secret relationship while lying to you about it. That would be terrible." Dahlia stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her recalculating, trying to figure out how much I actually knew and how much damage I could do. She was starting to realize that her boring, predictable husband might not be as harmless as she'd assumed. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to have dinner with me tomorrow night. You, me, Jax, and Kendra. Just the 4 of us, having an honest conversation about the future." "Kendra doesn't know about your affair?" "Oh, I think she does. In fact, I think Kendra knows quite a lot about your recent activities. She's been very helpful." This was a bluff, but it worked. Dahlia's face went white. "You talked to Kendra?" "Let's just say Kendra and I have developed a better understanding recently. She's quite the conversationalist when she wants to be." The truth was, I hadn't spoken to Kendra yet, but I knew she was Dahlia's closest confidant and biggest gossip source. If anyone knew the details of Dahlia's affair, it would be Kendra. And if anyone could be convinced to share those details, it would also be Kendra, especially if she thought it might benefit her somehow. "Dinner tomorrow night," I repeated. 7 o'clock, that new place downtown, Meridian. I'll make reservations. And if I refuse? Then I'll have to assume you're not interested in resolving this amicably, and I'll proceed accordingly. What does that mean? I smiled at her, the same pleasant smile I used with difficult clients at work. It means I'll stop being nice about this. After Dahlia went upstairs, presumably to call Jax and panic, I called Kendra myself. "Rylan, this is unexpected." "Hi, Kendra. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just watching Netflix, what's up?" I was hoping we could talk. "About Dahlia, and about some things I've recently discovered." There was a long pause. "What kind of things?" "The kind that might be embarrassing for everyone involved if they became public knowledge. But I'm hoping we can handle this discreetly between friends. Rylan, I don't know what you think you know, but I know about Jax. I know about the money. I know about the wellness retreat that wasn't actually a wellness retreat. And I know that you've been helping Dahlia plan this for months." Another pause. Longer this time. "She's my friend, Rylan. I understand. And I'm not asking you to betray that friendship. I'm asking you to help me understand the full situation so I can make informed decisions about my marriage and my future." "What kind of help?" "Dinner tomorrow night. You, me, Dahlia, and Jax. Just the four of us having an honest conversation." That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Maybe. Or maybe it's an opportunity for everyone to be honest about what they want and what they're willing to do to get it. I could hear her thinking, weighing her options. Kendra was fundamentally self-interested, which made her predictable. She'd go along with whatever seemed most likely to benefit her in the long run. "What's in it for me?" she asked finally. "My discretion about your role in all this, and my gratitude, which might be worth more than you think." "Fine. But Rylan, don't expect this to go the way you think it will." "Kendra," I said, "I'm counting on it." The dinner at Meridian was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. I'd chosen the restaurant carefully, upscale enough that making a scene would be embarrassing, but not so exclusive that interesting conversations couldn't be overheard by other diners. I arrived first and requested a table in the center of the dining room, then activated the voice recording app on my phone. By the time Dahlia, Jax, and Kendra arrived, I was sitting calmly, reviewing the menu like a man without a care in the world. Jax looked nervous. The incident with his car had clearly shaken him, and he kept glancing around the restaurant like he expected another humiliation to materialize at any moment. Dahlia looked determined, like she'd spent the day preparing for battle. Kendra just looked curious. "Thank you all for coming," I said as they sat down. "I thought it was time we had an honest conversation about the situation." "What situation?" Jax asked, trying to project confidence. "The situation where you've been having an affair with my wife while she uses our joint assets to fund your lifestyle." Jax's face flushed red. "Now wait just a minute." "No, you wait," I said calmly. "I'm not here to argue or make accusations. I'm here to discuss facts. Fact 1. You and Dahlia have been having an affair for 4 months. Fact 2. She's transferred over $15,000 from our joint accounts to fund this relationship. Fact 3. You've both been lying to multiple people about your activities." "You can't prove any of that," Dahlia said. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. "Actually, I can. Would you like me to play some of the text messages? I particularly enjoyed the one where Jax called me that pathetic loser who doesn't deserve you." Jax went pale. You hacked her phone? I didn't hack anything. Dahlia's been backing up all her messages to the cloud using our shared family account, the same account I use for work. Technically, she's been sending me copies of everything automatically. Kendra leaned forward, suddenly interested. What kind of everything? Photos, videos, messages, financial records. It's quite comprehensive. Dahlia grabbed my phone, but I was faster. Give me that. I don't think so. But don't worry, that's not the only copy. The conversation continued for another hour, with Dahlia and Jax alternating between denial, justification, and threats. Kendra mostly listened, occasionally asking pointed questions that made it clear she knew more about the situation than either Dahlia or Jax realized. Finally, Jax made the mistake I'd been waiting for. Look, man, I'm sorry about your marriage, but Dahlia's an adult. She can make her own choices, and if she chooses to be with someone who actually appreciates her, someone who appreciates her $15,000, you mean? I never asked her for money. Really? Because I have records of transfers to your account. Your rent, your car payment, your gym membership. She's been supporting you for months. That's not, she wanted to help. She wanted to help you spend my money. Jax stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several other diners turned to look. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Because if you walk away now, I'll assume you're not interested in resolving this quietly, and I'll proceed with more public options. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a choice. Sit down, finish this conversation like an adult, and we can handle this discreetly. Or leave, and deal with the consequences of having your entire social media presence linked to evidence of fraud and theft. Jax sat down. The rest of the dinner was a masterclass in controlled humiliation. I laid out exactly what I knew, exactly what I could prove, and exactly what I was prepared to do with that information. By the time dessert arrived, both Dahlia and Jax were sweating despite the restaurant's air conditioning. So here's what's going to happen, I said finally. Jax, you're going to transfer back every penny Dahlia gave you, all of it, tonight. I don't have $15,000. Then you'd better figure out how to get it. Sell your car, borrow from family, get a loan. I don't care how you do it, but you have 48 hours. And if I don't? Then I send everything to your employer, your family, your social media contacts, and anyone else who might find it interesting, including the photos Dahlia took of you in compromising positions. Jax's face went white. What photos? I looked at Dahlia, who was staring at her plate like it might provide an escape route. You didn't tell him about your photography hobby? Dahlia? Jax's voice was strained. I was going to delete them, she whispered. Delete what? The pictures and the videos. I thought they were romantic, but… You recorded us. Jax was starting to hyperventilate. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? I'm engaged. My fiancé, oh God, my fiancé. And that's when Kendra dropped her bombshell. Actually, Jax, about your fiancé. She pulled out her own phone. I might have some bad news. We all stared at her. What kind of bad news? Jax asked. The kind where she already knows about the affair, because I sent her screenshots of your text messages this afternoon. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the ambient restaurant noise seemed to fade as Jax processed what Kendra had just said. You did what? I sent her everything. The messages, the photos, the financial records. She's actually outside in the parking lot right now, waiting to have a conversation with you. Jax jumped up so fast he knocked over his water glass, sending ice and liquid cascading across the table and onto the floor. Several waiters rushed over with towels, and the entire restaurant was now watching our table with undisguised interest. Why would you do that? Dahlia hissed at Kendra. Because you were going to throw me under the bus, Kendra replied calmly. I heard you on the phone with Jax yesterday, planning to blame me for encouraging the affair. claiming I was the one who suggested stealing money from Rylan. Did you really think I wouldn't protect myself? I had to admire Kendra's timing. She'd waited until the perfect moment to detonate her own little bomb, maximizing the chaos and ensuring that everyone's attention was focused on the drama unfolding at our table. "This is insane," Dahlia said. "All of you are insane." "Actually," I said, standing up and placing money on the table for the bill, "this is just getting started." As we left the restaurant, I could see other diners pulling out their phones, recording the aftermath of what had clearly been a spectacular public meltdown. By tomorrow morning, the story would be all over social media, and everyone in Dahlia's social circle would know exactly what had happened. Phase 3 was about to begin. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and a voicemail from Dahlia's mother that began with, "Rylan, what in God's name is happening?" and went downhill from there. The dinner at Meridian had been even more successful than I'd hoped. Someone had recorded Jax's meltdown and posted it online, where it had been shared hundreds of times overnight. The hashtag Jachu Wellness Retreat was trending locally, accompanied by increasingly creative memes about cheating spouses and their boy toys. But the real masterpiece was still to come. I'd spent the early morning hours creating what I called the Comprehensive Relationship Audit, a detailed presentation that laid out the entire timeline of Dahlia's affair, complete with screenshots, financial records, and a cost-benefit analysis of her deception. It was formatted like a professional business report, because if you're going to destroy someone's reputation, you might as well do it with style. The presentation included charts showing the correlation between Dahlia's overtime hours and her actual location data, a breakdown of the $15,000 she'd transferred to Jax, categorized by expense type, rent, car payments, gym memberships, and miscellaneous emotional support services, and a timeline comparing her stated activities with her documented activities. My favorite section was titled Return on Investment Analysis, which calculated that Dahlia had spent approximately $375 per romantic encounter, not including the opportunity cost of destroying a 15-year marriage. I sent the presentation to 3 carefully selected recipients: Marlene at Dahlia's work, Dahlia's sister Maddie, and Mrs. Pruitt, our neighbor who ran the neighborhood social media group and had never met a piece of gossip she didn't immediately share with everyone she knew. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks to begin. The first explosion came at 9:47 a.m., when Dahlia called me screaming so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You sent that thing to my sister!" "I sent it to several people, actually. I thought they should know the truth about the situation." "This is harassment. This is documentation. Everything in that report is factual and verifiable. If you have any corrections or additions, I'm happy to publish an updated version." "You're destroying my life!" "Actually, you destroyed your own life. I'm just making sure people understand what happened." The second explosion came 30 minutes later, when Jax called. "My fiancée left me," he said, without preamble. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Did she say why?" "You know why. Because of that presentation you sent around. She saw the part about the money, about the photos, about everything." "I didn't send the presentation to your fiancé." "Then how did she—" He paused, probably realizing that by now the document was circulating through multiple social networks and had probably reached everyone in both his and Dahlia's social circles. "Jax, here's some free advice. When you're in a hole, stop digging." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you should probably focus on damage control instead of making things worse. Have you talked to your employer yet?" "My employer? Why would I— Oh no. Oh no. Might want to get ahead of that conversation. Just a suggestion." The third explosion was the most satisfying. At 2:30 p.m., I received a call from Marlene at Dahlia's company. "Rylan, I've reviewed the additional documentation you provided." "And?" "Dahlia's employment has been terminated, effective immediately. We've also referred the matter to our legal department for potential prosecution." "I see. I want you to know that the company appreciates you bringing this to our attention. This kind of behavior reflects poorly on all of us. I understand. I hope this doesn't cause too much disruption. Actually, it explains several irregularities we'd noticed in recent months. Projects that were delayed, client meetings that were rescheduled, discrepancies in her expense reports. We should have investigated sooner. After I hung up, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. Dahlia had spent months planning her exit strategy, carefully positioning herself for what she thought would be a clean break that left her with half of everything and a new boyfriend to support her transition to single life. Instead, she was unemployed, publicly humiliated, and facing potential criminal charges for theft and fraud. But I wasn't finished yet. That evening, I drove to Jax's apartment complex, where I'd arranged for a special delivery. The box contained all of Dahlia's belongings that she'd left at his place: clothes, toiletries, books, and several items I'd added for dramatic effect, including a framed photo of us from our wedding day and a copy of our marriage certificate. I'd also included a note: "Property of Dahlia Harson, unemployed adulteress. Please return to sender." I left the box in the lobby with a sign that read, "Free to good home, slightly used relationship materials." Then I went home and waited. Dahlia arrived at my house at 11:30 p.m., carrying the box and crying harder than I'd seen her cry since her father's funeral. "Please," she said. "Please, we can fix this. I made a mistake, but we can work through it." "Can we?" "Because according to your text messages, I'm a boring, pathetic loser who doesn't deserve you. According to your journal entries, our marriage has been a prison that you couldn't wait to escape. According to your financial records, you've been planning this exit strategy for months." I was angry. I was confused. I didn't mean those things. "Which things? The things you said or the things you did?" She was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to tell me why I should believe that any of this is genuine remorse instead of panic, because your plan didn't work out the way you expected." "Because I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I provided. You love having someone to pay the bills while you figured out your next move. You love having a backup plan in case your affair didn't work out." "That's not true." "Prove it." "How?" I looked at her standing there in our doorway, holding a box of her own belongings like a refugee from her own bad decisions, and I felt something I hadn't expected: pity. "You can't," I said finally, "because it is true, and we both know it." I closed the door and went to bed, leaving Dahlia standing on the porch with her box of memories and her carefully constructed world falling apart around her. Tomorrow, I would file the divorce papers. Tomorrow, the final phase would begin. But tonight, for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. 3 weeks later, I was settling into my new routine: smaller apartment, simpler life, no more joint accounts to monitor or mysterious charges to investigate, when Kendra called with information that changed everything. "We need to meet," she said without preamble. "There's something you need to know about Dahlia and Jax." "I think I know enough about Dahlia and Jax to last several lifetimes." "No, you don't. This is different. This is about what they were really planning." We met at a coffee shop downtown, the kind of place where the baristas have advanced degrees and the customers all look like they're writing novels on their laptops. Kendra arrived carrying a manila envelope and wearing the expression of someone who'd been carrying a secret too heavy for one person to bear alone. "I should have told you this earlier," she said, sliding the envelope across the table. "But I hoped it wouldn't come to this." Inside the envelope was a USB drive and a stack of printed documents. The documents were bank statements, insurance policies, and what appeared to be a forged power of attorney with my signature on it. What am I looking at? Dahlia and Jax weren't just having an affair. They were planning to frame you for embezzlement from your own company. I stared at the papers, trying to process what she was telling me. Frame me for what? They've been building a case against you for months. fake transactions, forged documents, manufactured evidence that would make it look like you've been stealing from your employer and hiding the money in offshore accounts. That's impossible. I don't have access to company funds. No, but you have access to company data systems. And according to their plan, that was enough to create a plausible case for digital embezzlement. They were going to wait until after the divorce was finalized, then present the evidence to your company and the police. I picked up one of the bank statements. It showed an account in my name with deposits totaling over $200,000, money I'd never seen, and transactions I'd never made. How did they create this? Jax has connections, people who specialize in this kind of thing. The plan was to destroy your reputation and your career, making it impossible for you to fight the divorce settlement or challenge their version of events. And you knew about this? Kendra looked uncomfortable. I knew they were planning something beyond the affair. But I didn't know the details until last week, when Dahlia asked me to be a witness in their case against you. A witness to what? To your supposed confession. They wanted me to sign a statement saying I'd overheard you talking about stealing money from your company to fund gambling debts. I felt that familiar cold sensation in my chest, but this time it was different. This wasn't just betrayal, this was attempted destruction of everything I'd built over 15 years of honest work. What did you tell them? I told them I'd think about it. Then I started documenting everything they said, every plan they made, every piece of evidence they tried to fabricate. She pulled out her phone and showed me a recording app. I've been recording our conversations for 2 weeks. Everything is on here, their entire plan, their timeline, their backup strategies if the first attempt didn't work. Why are you telling me this now? Because they're planning to execute the final phase tomorrow night. They've arranged a meeting with your HR department and a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit. They're going to present their evidence and demand your immediate arrest. I looked at the USB drive. What's on here? Copies of everything. The real documents, the fake documents, recordings of their planning sessions, text messages discussing the frame-up, everything you need to prove what they were really doing. I pocketed the USB drive and looked at Kendra. What do you want in return for this? I want immunity. Complete immunity from whatever you're planning to do to them. What makes you think I'm planning to do anything? Because you're you. And because they made the mistake of trying to destroy someone who's smarter than they are. She was right. I was already formulating a plan, something that would expose their scheme in the most public and humiliating way possible. But first, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. Tell me everything, I said. Every detail, every conversation, every plan they made. Kendra talked for 2 hours, laying out a conspiracy that was both more elaborate and more stupid than I could have imagined. Dahlia and Jax had spent months creating fake evidence, bribing people to provide false testimony, and building what they thought was an airtight case against me. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd trusted Kendra to be their accomplice without considering that she might have her own agenda. There's one more thing, Kendra said as we prepared to leave. They're planning to confront you tonight, at your apartment. They want to give you a chance to confess before they go to the authorities tomorrow. Confess to crimes I didn't commit? They think you'll be so overwhelmed by the evidence that you'll break down and admit to everything. Then they'll record your confession and use it to support their case. I smiled, and Kendra actually took a step back. What? She asked. They want a confrontation? They want a confession? They want to record everything? Yeah. Why? Because I'm going to give them exactly what they're asking for. That evening, I prepared for what would be the final act of this entire drama. I set up recording equipment throughout my apartment, called Drew to serve as a witness, and contacted a friend who worked as a paralegal to document everything that was about to happen. Then I sat down and waited for Dahlia and Jax to arrive. They came at 9 p.m., just as Kendra had predicted. Dahlia looked nervous but determined. Jax looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. We need to talk, Dahlia said. Come in. Let's talk. They sat down in my living room, and I could see Jax checking his phone, probably activating his own recording app. Rylan, Dahlia began, we know what you've been doing. What have I been doing? Stealing money from your company. We have evidence. What kind of evidence? Jax pulled out a folder and spread documents across my coffee table. Bank statements, transaction records, forged emails. It was an impressive collection of fabricated evidence. This shows over $200,000 in unauthorized transfers from your company's accounts to your personal accounts, Jax said. Interesting. When did these transfers supposedly take place? Over the past 18 months. Small amounts at first, then larger ones as you got more confident. And you discovered this how? We've been investigating your activities since we suspected you were hiding assets during the divorce proceedings, Dahlia said. You've been investigating me. We had to protect ourselves. I nodded thoughtfully, as if considering their evidence. This is very serious. If this is true, I could go to prison. That's why we're here, Jax said. We want to give you a chance to come clean before we go to the authorities. Come clean about what exactly? About the embezzlement, about the gambling, about the offshore accounts. What gambling? What offshore accounts? Dahlia leaned forward. We know about the poker games, Rylan. We know about the sports betting. We know you've been stealing money to cover your losses. This was fascinating. Not only had they fabricated evidence of embezzlement, they'd created an entire fictional narrative to explain my supposed motivation. How much do you think I've stolen? At least $200,000, probably more. And you have proof of all this? We have everything, Jax said confidently. Bank records, transaction logs, witness statements, Dahlia added. Witness statements from whom? People who've seen you gambling, people who know about your debts. I stood up and walked to my kitchen, returning with a bottle of water. This is a lot to process. You're saying I'm a thief and a gambling addict, and you have evidence to prove it. Yes. And if I confess to these crimes, you'll what? Help me work out a deal with the authorities? We'll testify on your behalf, character witnesses. We'll tell them you're getting help for your addiction. That's very generous of you. I sat back down and looked at both of them. Dahlia was trying to look sympathetic, like she was doing this out of concern for my well-being. Jax was trying to look tough, like he was reluctantly doing his civic duty. There's just one problem with your evidence, I said finally. What's that? Jax asked. It's all fake. The silence that followed was profound. I could actually see them processing what I'd said, trying to figure out if I was bluffing or if I somehow knew more than they'd expected. That's ridiculous, Dahlia said finally. We have documentation. You have fabricated documentation. Very good fabrications, I'll give you credit for that, but fake nonetheless. You can't prove that, Jax said. Actually, I can, because I've been recording everything you've said tonight, just like you've been recording everything I've said. The difference is, my recording includes you admitting to fabricating evidence and planning to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. Both of them went pale. That's illegal, Dahlia whispered. What's illegal? Recording a conversation in my own home? Actually, that's perfectly legal in Ohio. What's illegal is conspiracy to commit fraud, filing false police reports, and attempting to frame someone for embezzlement. I pulled out my phone and played back the last few minutes of our conversation, including Jax's confident assertion that they had everything, and Dahlia's admission that they'd been investigating me. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to take your fake evidence and leave. You're going to cancel whatever meeting you have planned with HR and the police, and you're going to disappear from my life permanently. And if we don't, Jax asked, then I'll release everything I have about your little conspiracy. Not just to the authorities, but to everyone. Your families, your friends, your employers, your social media contacts. Everyone will know that you're not just cheaters, you're criminals who tried to destroy an innocent person to cover up your own theft and fraud. You're bluffing, Dahlia said. Am I? I pulled out the USB drive Kendra had given me and placed it on the table next to their fake evidence. This contains recordings of every planning session you had, copies of every fake document you created, and testimony from your co-conspirator who decided she didn't want to go to prison for you. Kendra wouldn't, Dahlia started, then stopped. Wouldn't what? Wouldn't protect herself when she realized you were planning to throw her under the bus? Wouldn't document everything when she figured out that you were going to blame her if your plan failed? Jax grabbed the folder of fake evidence and stood up. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Because if I see either of you again, if you contact me, if you even think about trying to salvage this pathetic scheme, I'll destroy you both so completely that you'll wish you'd never met each other. They left without another word, and I sat in my quiet apartment, finally understanding that it was truly over. The next morning, I called Marlene at Dahlia's former company and arranged to meet with their security department. I turned over all the evidence of the attempted frame-up, along with documentation of Dahlia's original theft and fraud. 2 days later, both Dahlia and Jax were arrested on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and attempted extortion. I never saw either of them again. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, reading about their sentencing in the local newspaper when my phone rang. It was Drew. Did you see the news? I saw it. How do you feel? I considered the question. How did I feel? Satisfied? Vindicated? Relieved? I feel like I learned something important, I said finally. What's that? That sometimes the best revenge is just letting people destroy themselves. And sometimes it's helping them along a little bit? Sometimes, I agreed. Sometimes it's that too.